All right. Looks like we are live. Welcome, everyone, to our Success Mastermind for Monday, the 16th of November, 2020. John Lavenia here with you and you and you. Look who we got here. Look at all these esteemed members of our group. Adrian, glad you're feeling better. Sharon's here. My goodness, who let her in the door? Hey, Adrian, Adrian. Suzanne, Caroline, good to see you. Jane and Neil, looking awesome as always. And of course, Stuart the Llama King. Oh, so good to see you, Stuart. I missed you, man. You've been too busy. So have I. We got Bill and Nikki, Gail, John Apogee. Well, hello, Jody, Evelyn, my friend Evelyn and Mark, Nancy, Glenn, whose book I just read and wrote the foreword for. So get ready for that. Janet, Ivier, good to see you. Evelyn, Julia, Sandra, Jamie, Ego, and others. Oh, here comes Therese. Look at that. And more people piling in as we speak. Good to be here with you. So just before we went live, Adrian, my friend Adrian Garner, my other friend Adrian Jackson is not the one I'm talking about right now. Adrian Garner, my friend, was talking about a book by Oscar Wilde, which I had not read. Now, I know some Oscar Wilde quotes. This is going to segue into our topic for today, by the way. That guy had some interesting quotes, that's for sure. Yeah, I really like some Oscar Wilde quotes. But he mentioned this book about Dorian Gray, which is apparently not a play, but an actual, just a story, prose, fiction, I'm guessing. I don't know. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because as you were mentioning that, and as Suzanne over in Switzerland was saying, oh, I just get the books on Kindle because I get it instantly. I don't know if they're going to show up in Switzerland. I want the book now. Can I please have my book now? And here it comes. So anyway, I go to what is this site called again? Amazon. Yes, Amazon. You've heard of it. Yes. And I typed Dorian Gray, Oscar Wilde. And what do I find? Check this out. Picture of Dorian Gray. So apparently that's the full title of the book. And I said, oh, well, there's multiple versions of it. I'm in the Kindle store right now. And here's one, the picture of Dorian Gray, $1.99. Look at the release date on it. Yesterday. So is this like a coincidence or something? Is this like, how does this happen? Within 12 to 24 hours of you recommending this book, somebody released it again, right? Apparently it's been released before. It's not like Oscar Wilde wrote this yesterday. The guy's been dead for a little while. Adrian, you have an explanation for this? Is this you?
It's definitely the ether, John. It's that ether again.
It must be the ethers. That must be what it is. So I don't know which one to get now. Well, this one's $1.99 too. Maybe I should get the $8.99 version. I get something extra. I get a picture on that one. Who knows? This one, $38 hardcover, doesn't even come with a cover. It's just, they ran out of other colors, so they used blue that day. All right. Well, apparently it is time for us all to read Dorian Gray, or in this case, the picture of Dorian Gray, which apparently is a thriller, but it's got some deep meaning, right? Adrian, there's like something of use in there.
It's a real moral tale. Yeah. But it's terrifying, but fascinating at the same time, John.
Terrifying. Sign me up. We're not too far out from Halloween. Just happened a couple of weeks ago. So I could use a little bit more thrills and excitement. Hey, everyone, here's what we're talking about today. And it's good to see everyone today as we kick our week off. We do have a few things happening on the calendar today for our members. Of course, after this, we've got our hospitality suite, which runs 24 hours a day whenever we're not in regularly scheduled sessions. And of course, at 7:30 p.m. Eastern U.S. time, we have e-commerce work group with Stuart Wilde. Now, Stuart, I'm going to ask you to comment on this as well, if you'd like. I know you've got different topics each week, and we've got a lot of people who are engaged in various forms of e-commerce here. In fact, this time slot may be shifting moving forward. That's, of course, up to Stuart and what pleases the group. Stuart, any idea what you're going to be talking about today on our e-commerce work group? No.
Hey, John. Hey, everybody.
Yes.
Hope you guys had a good weekend. Yeah, you mentioned I've been super busy. And so like most of us here, we have budding e-commerce businesses, and we do our best to make use of these sessions to bring up topics and work on things that are relevant and pertinent and timely to all of us. I've been working on shipping plans. I know that some folks are working on that stuff. We tend to be revisiting a lot of topics as people get closer and closer to bringing their products to market. One of the things I wanted to talk about tonight was there are some new guidelines from Amazon regarding listings and communications and things like that. So we'll talk about what Amazon's latest requirements and guidelines for listings are. And anything you guys want to talk about, please, drop a suggestion in the Facebook, and we'll cover whatever you guys want to do.
Fantastic. Thank you, as always, Stuart. And, Stuart and others here, like Adrian, who you just met, volunteer their time to deliver insights and additional masterminding on things that are relevant in various different topics, various different targets that we're hitting. E-commerce certainly is one of them. And then tonight, we're going to get back to the philosophy of Napoleon Hill. We're going to be on chapter 11 of Think and Grow Rich, original text, 1937 edition. Chapter 11, The Mystery of Sex Transmutation, the 10th step toward riches. If you haven't read that chapter yet, dig in, because we're going to be covering it tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern U.S. time. And again, on Wednesday, in our Books for Britain session, which is a bit more Britain time zone friendly. And of course, Suzanne, Switzerland as well, right? Throughout Europe. So, all right, good. So having said all that, I've got this idea that came up for me today because it has been a frantic weekend. I know we've been dealing with lots of different stuff, whether you're engaged in, e-commerce or writing books like my friend Glenn, or Nego, right, who just published her first book, or you're engaged in, my goodness, parenting. In my case, I'm engaged in multiple things, right? I've got that. I've got 4 businesses that I'm running. I've got a wife who's recovering from major surgery. It's been a couple weeks now. She's doing well, by the way. We got a doctor's appointment after this call to go meet the surgeon again and have some stuff done. I won't get into details because it's kind of disgusting, but yeah, things need to be done. Right. And I was thinking, because I was getting overwhelmed. I don't know anyone else gets overwhelmed. Probably just me. Right. Just me. Okay. Thank you. So it's good to be unique. I feel so unique. So I was getting overwhelmed with all this stuff. I've got multiple deadlines, and some of these are flexible, but on different fronts. I've got different demands from different people, and they're all coming in at the same time. Anyone ever felt like that? Right. You've got all these different things that have to be done. They all have to be done now. And it's all in different directions. And I don't like multitasking. I don't like it. In fact, I don't think I'm any good at it. I'm pretty good with focusing. In fact, I'm really good with focusing on stuff. But then if I have to shift my focus, like I was writing last night. And in fact, I was writing the foreword to Glenn's book, everything he needed to learn about success. He learned from Star Trek, right? So I read the book. And I'm writing the foreword to the book, and then I'm being impinged upon by things that have nothing to do with me writing the book. Anyone ever seen that movie, As Good as It Gets, with Jack Nicholson? And he's a romance novelist, right? And he's sitting there at his piano, and he's doing his thing, and he gets to like the final line of the book, and love was, and he's thinking of that last word, and then somebody rings his friggin' doorbell. Oh my goodness, throws his shit. What do you want? Opens the door. And he becomes reactive because he can't multitask either. Now we're talking about an imaginary character in a book, okay? Or in a movie. But I got to that point a few times over the last few days. Again, I know no one else can relate to this. I'm just letting you know this is what my life is like. And so knowing that I'm not a good multitasker, and knowing that I prefer not to shift my focus from thing to thing to thing to thing, I prefer to just focus on one thing and take it to a done. Sometimes in life, we have to, and again, I don't like the word multitask, but we have to juggle multiple opportunities simultaneously. And so I became exasperated. And some people in the chat are saying, John sounds a little hoarse today. Yes, I got, I don't think it's the coof. I don't think it's the Wu flu, but I got a little under the weather. Had a little congestion, doing better. Oh, and I did cut and color my hair just for you guys today. Just for you, Glenn. Yeah. So I look 20 years younger. Adrian was considering some Botox or something. I haven't done that. But I did cut and color my hair. $7, comes in a box. It's called Just for Men. Done. But I got a bit exasperated. And so I sat. Fortunately, I've done this enough that I know to do this. So I sat and got quiet. I sat and got in present time, meaning right now. Since I can't get all these things done right now, what can I do right now in present time? Right now, meaning right now in this exact moment. What would my life be any different if I had different circumstances right now in this moment? And the answer is no. No, I would still be sitting in this chair, breathing air, doing. Or so I'm getting right here, right now. And then I remembered something that I've done before. In fact, I've mentioned it in this group before. And this is, I guess, the topic of today. Anyone ever seen those bumper stickers that were popular, I think, for a while? I guess depending on where you live, they may still be, assuming people put bumper stickers on their cars. WWJD, which stood for "What would Jesus do?" Not "What would John do?" What would Jesus do? Right. So that was a thing, and a lot of Christians would like to remind themselves, well, what would Jesus do in this situation? So here's a pile of crap. What would Jesus do with this? Interesting. So that brings up the idea of role models. Role models. Now, whether you're, into Christian scripture or whatever, right? It doesn't matter. You still will be impinged upon by influences in your environment. You will still see role models, whether you acknowledge them as such or not. You will still become like the environment or the scripture or the doctrine that you've immersed yourself in. I have found this very, very true for myself. In fact, every big breakthrough that I've had in my life, and I've had a few, has come through the catalyst of another or others, right? Whether that be reading scripture or Napoleon Hill philosophy or watching a movie. Perhaps this Oscar Wilde book will have an impact, right? But and I've shared this before. I sometimes think about what would so and so do in this situation. How would they behave? Would they react like that character from As Good as It Gets, where Jack Nicholson, blows up? And is that how they would occur? Right? Is that my role model? That character that Jack Nicholson was enacting, or is it something or someone, even if it's a made up character, okay, in a movie? Is it someone who keeps their act together despite the juggling act? I've shared with some of you before one of my imaginary, we're talking about from the ethers here. So the imaginary role model, the council sitting around the table. Napoleon Hill talked about this in Think and Grow Rich. And here's Abe Lincoln. And here's Napoleon Bonaparte, who not necessarily was a moral guy, okay, but he definitely knew some stuff about leadership and creating a movement and getting things done, right? Here's Benjamin Franklin, right? Here are his imaginary council of people who don't even live on planet Earth anymore, right? And we could say here is Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, right? What would they do? One of them, for me, because I enjoy the fantasy world of Lord of the Rings, one of them is Aragorn. Aragorn, right? Anyone who's ever seen the Lord of the Rings movie. What was the guy who enacted Aragorn? Viggo something, I don't know his name.
Viggo Mortensen.
There you go. Viggo Mortensen. I'd seen him in a couple other movies, but anytime I see his face, I think Aragorn, right? I mean, it took him 10 years to make the movie. So that was probably his biggest role that he'll ever have in his life. But the Aragorn character, this is the guy who is sort of an outcast. He's a ranger from the north. He's a ruffian. But there's something different about this guy. Turns out he's heir to the throne, right? Turns out that the prophecy is about him. And this guy's gonna, take on Mordor and kick ass and reunite Middle Earth and blah blah blah. But anyway, the way he enacts this character, this guy goes through hell. But man, is he resilient? Just cool as a cucumber, right? And I mean, it's bloody battles and everything else, like hardcore stuff that I'm not occurring in my present time, right? I'm sitting here on the internet talking to you. Yes, I've got difficulties, battles, if you will, impinging on my attention and my focus. What would Aragorn do? How would he behave in all this? And so this may sound silly, and it may not. Okay, but I think Glenn, you just mentioned the actor's name, but Glenn just wrote a whole book about the lessons that he has gleaned from observing entertainment. Right, here's Captain Kirk. Who's Captain Kirk? Well, there's no Captain Kirk. It's a character. Right, here's Spock. He's a Vulcan. Right. Well, there are no Vulcans, at least not that we've contacted yet. I'm kind of hopeful about that. But yeah. So here are these people like Spock. What would Spock do? Right? Would he sit there and get all crazy? No, logic. The guy's impassive. He's like, yep, fascinating. Right? Here's a big pile of crap. Right? Here's the Klingons about to kill you all. Fascinating. Right? So, and of course that was Leonard Nimoy, right? Maybe we'll raise an eyebrow. Fascinating. But can we have role models in our life? I'm thinking yes, we have to. If we are going to assimilate, like the Borg, the Borg, you will be assimilated. But if we're going to be affected, and we will be, right? There's cause and effect, right? We cause things to occur, and we receive an effect from our environment, right? Can we choose deliberately how we're going to behave in that environment, even if it's in some cases overwhelmed, too many things at once? We mentioned Stuart before. I know he's up to his eyeballs in work, right? So, and yet, I think sometimes, what would Stuart do? Right. That's a good thing to ask if Stuart is your role model in some way. Right. I could tell you that if I was, out in the mountains right now, outdoors, or, doing the llama thing, right, Stuart definitely would be the role model, and in other ways too. Right. A lot of people, despite the fact that we know Stuart as, the guy who has much experience in the realm of trekking up mountains with, pack llamas. None of us have ever done that with Stuart before. This group was born on the internet. The vast majority of us have never met in person, which is fine and also is temporary, right? Because believe it or not, this COVID thing will end. I know there are a lot of influences in the world who would rather it didn't end, okay, but it will, one way or another. And I suspect we'll get together for a little, outing up the mountain with the pack llamas, right? Like, do it for real. I know some of our friends in the UK, right? You've gotten together for, tea or crumpets or whatever you guys do over there. Tea and crumpets, and, in Birmingham, or who knows, right? So it's on our Facebook group. go look at the pictures. Thank you, Evelyn, for maintaining our Facebook group. But despite the fact that I had never met Aragorn or Stuart or Jesus or Spock, right? Can I assimilate, internalize, and behave as the ideal, the ideal scenario, right? In other words, can I behave as the ideal version of John by taking from each role model, and I have different ones for different situations, just like Napoleon Hill talked about in Think and Grow Rich. Can I take the best attributes of Abe Lincoln, or Napoleon Bonaparte for that matter, right? Can I take these attributes and strengthen myself because I've defined myself as those attributes, right? The strength of, let's say Gandhi, right? The resolution of somebody like that, right? Hey, look, I'll starve myself to death if you guys don't get your act together, right? Here's my demonstration. That's, my goodness, wow. And without lifting a sword, right? Change the country. That's pretty bold example, right? Can I look at other traits, like, for example, patience, right? I've said, in fact, in my first book, Integrity is Everything, I mentioned that I've got different role models for different things. My wife is my role model for being gracious, right? In other words, not taking too seriously or holding grudges and things like that, being more empathetic and understanding with the foibles of others, right? She's very gracious in that way. Me, not so much, right? So I can adopt that. I can choose to be gracious. All I got to do is remind myself, what would Shannon do in that situation? So I guess my offer for you today, and what I just was practicing just before we went live, is to pick a couple of role models, or at least start with one, right? If it could be one thing where you see as a deficit, like a character defect for yourself, only you can take your own inventory, right? So here's something where I feel like I'm in a state of deficit. What would be the exact opposite? Like, who demonstrates total, like, awesomeness in that area? Okay. And it doesn't have to be like a real person from history or modern times or whatever. Could be somebody from a movie. Fine, whatever. But it's that ideal, the image of the ideal version of that character trait, that strength of character that we can then take and allow ourselves to adopt, right? As easily as we can reject these things or just pass them off and neglect them as, well, that's just entertainment or something, or that's not me, right? As easily as we can do that, we can just as easily, this doesn't take a whole lot of note taking and thinking. We could just as easily say, you know what, I'm going to strive to be more like that today. In every act of genius, we see our own rejected thoughts. Ralph Emerson. In every act of genius. And what is genius? Right? It's a super high level of understanding and performance, right? An act of genius. In every act of genius, we recognize our own rejected thoughts. Sure, I could be like that, but I've decided to neglect or reject it, right? So how about we unreject it? And how about we say, oh, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and adopt. No, not perfect. No, I'm going to get on the path right now today. And it's just one little thing that I can do where I could take pause and I could say, what would so-and-so do in this situation? The image of my ideal performer, the genius in that area. Let me start to behave that way now. And I'll tell you one of the things that that we can all do and that I can do is, because this is definitely an attribute of genius, is I can differentiate, I can discriminate between problems that actually need to be solved, yes, barriers that need to be overcome, versus distractions that need to be ignored. That is a characteristic of genius, the ability to distinguish the difference between important and unimportant data, because it'll impinge on your life. It'll never end. Right? So there's got to be some discrimination. There's got to be some, you know what, I'm going to tackle this problem. This here, not my responsibility. Yes, part of being responsible is knowing what we're not responsible for. And I get caught up in this all the time. So again, the question for me is, what would so-and-so do when confronted with all this mess of stuff that they could put their attention on? They could, but do they? Right? Some of this may be presumptuous, but work with what you got. Okay, we're talking about an imaginary, ideal person who may not even exist. But you can start to incorporate that into your own persona. That's what's coming up for me today. It may be pretty far afield of what anyone was expecting to talk about today. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, right? Is this something that you do, or is this something you'd like to do? Or am I out of my friggin' mind? Glenn, you've got the floor. What do you think?
Out of your freaking mind? Well, yes, but it's a great topic anyway.
I've been working on getting out of my mind for a long time. It takes a lot of practice.
Which reminds me of a movie that some may find interesting called Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And I'll just leave that there.
I'll tell you what, Way of the Electric Razor. We both shaved. Okay.
How do you like that, huh?
What is happening? Okay, go ahead.
Well, I got the impulse this weekend. Let's try something different. What do you think? Up, down, down. Anyway.
Well, the thing is, for me, my eyebrows are the only thing that are still like my natural color. And so like my beard comes in all gray, my hair comes in all gray. So at least now I match for a few days. We'll see how.
Well, I've been told that the gray looks distinguished or something.
Yeah.
I have actually
unfair advantage as men. We age very, very nicely.
This is it. I have been giving a great deal of thought to this whole idea of role models of late, John. As you know, you saw some evidence of it, and you've just read some evidence of it from me. And thank you, by the way, for your contribution. Priceless. Absolutely priceless. Wait till y'all read John's forward. It's bloody unbelievable. I'm sorry, is that unbloody believable? Anyway, so my point is that I have, as time goes by, been assembling a list or a collection of my own real and virtual role models, my real and virtual mastermind, if you like. I've been taking so much inspiration and fun and food for thought from this group. It's just been fantastic. At the moment, and I'm going to need to jump off early anyway for this call. At the moment, my virtual role models include several people who teach me daily lessons about essentially two things. Number one, keeping my cool, and number two, getting shit done. And that list is, well, Napoleon Hill is a role model to me because he spent 20 years getting some shit done. This book in particular. My dad, who was the godliest, hardest working, most loyal man I ever knew. So I learned from him daily. God rest his soul. Yes, Spock and James T. Kirk, for a variety of reasons, which, you know, you read about and I won't get into. And interestingly enough, one of my major role models, for me, it's WWLD. What would Lavenia do? Because, and you know, this is, I'm only saying this, John, because you know, sent me that big check last week. I'm kidding. I have sometimes gone through my own struggles around getting things done, around sticking to, and what you just said, John, one characteristic of genius, the ability to distinguish between a problem to be solved and a distraction to be ignored. In my mind, you are the global master at ignoring distractions and getting shit done. And in that, I learn from you on a daily basis. So thank you for that, and thank you for the forward. And I encourage anyone that I talk with to assemble their own group of real and virtual role models, your own real/virtual mastermind. Change your life. Change your life. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Glenn. And you know what? That makes me doubly aware of my responsibility for how I show up in society, right? Because others are looking, and they may be considering me as the ideal in some area of life. So thank you, brother. I really appreciate and honor you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for facilitating, boom, all that you do. Let's get to Mr. Cyril Dorset, our favorite salsa dancer extraordinary.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. You just actually, it's funny. I'd never thought of myself having role models before, but I realize I do have a few. But I'll get back to that. One thing I must admit, I'm not great at multitasking, but I do like to multitask when I can. And the thing I learned from trial and error is to, in terms of if you're doing one main thing, is to make the other things that are really easy to do, and just put them on put them on and let them, like the washing machine. For me, having things like that go on in the background, I put it on whilst I'm doing something else. So, and for me, and then if I can find another thing I can do that's like that, I can just put it on and let it go. For me, that's another form of multitasking. So I don't, and then the thing I'm working on is the actual real thing. But so that's my way to try and make it, to try and get round the fact that I'm not great at multitasking. But actually, one of my role models is one of my friends, and I don't get to really, I have to be really in the right state of mind to do what she does. But I admire her greatly. She's a professor of veterinarian cardiology, very bright lady, lovely lady, very sweet, very bright, as I've said. And I remember her telling me one time that that what she tries to do with her, because she basically treats animals, and she's at a very famous veterinary college north of London, and so she treats very poorly animals. And one of the things she tries to do is that I remember her telling me was that no matter how upset the person in front of her is, the more they're upset they are, the more she calms down. So she becomes she becomes the peace. She becomes the quiet place. So no matter and she literally tries to go the complete other way. So the more upset they are, the more she becomes quiet and solid, so to speak, so that she can take, because obviously she has to deal with a lot of stress with animals that are very poorly and having to give really bad news sometimes as well. So and for me that was I mean I find her so admirable anyway, because she's so bright, but the other thing is because of how she handles things like that on a daily basis. So yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Cyril. And that's another example of a role model, someone who could be objective and in present time despite some very emotional stuff going on. So thank you.
Yeah.
Great example. Let's go to, we got Stuart, then Bill, then Caroline. Hey, Stuart.
Hey, John, what a great topic today. What would Jesus do, morphing into all this stuff? I love it. I do remember those bumper stickers. And I also remember all the kind of jokey tangents that came off of that. But it's funny, I think often, and I didn't even know if it was related, but once we really started this journey together of mindset and e-commerce, one of the things I started saying to myself very early on when it came to making decisions and all this very overwhelming, new, intimidating information was, what would a successful Amazon seller do? What would a successful entrepreneur do, right? These are sort of archetypes that we all have access to, right? Or those versions of ourself. I often think to myself, what would the higher version of myself do? What would the best version of myself do? And I think that you alluded to that or outright said that in your words earlier. And I think that segues into the role model thing for me. And maybe John, maybe some of you guys can relate. I don't really feel like I had role models growing up, right? I had a father that wasn't present. And even if he was, it wasn't, he wasn't somebody that I looked up to in terms of the kind of person that I wanted to be. In fact, I would say that my parents were examples of what kind of people not to be, right? And so I definitely took that to heart, or how not to live your life, or how not to handle money, or how not to be in a relationship and things like that. But to me, like, I remember as a kid growing up, like, you had sort of the Hollywood versions of role models. And for me growing up in the 80s, that was, like Rambo or, Schwarzenegger or what, like those were sort of the role models that we got. And I realized pretty early on, at least in my late teens and early 20s, that as I was trying to figure out who I was and where I fit into the world and how I related to the world, I realized pretty quickly that I really didn't have role models. I looked to many of the philosophers and mystics, right, as my role models, right? And I remember we've talked about Yogananda and things like that. And so, when I think about the people that I aspire to be, real or fictional, these are all people that have, let's say, transcended the bounds of limitations, right? And those are the people and the archetypes that I look up to. And I think, honestly, man, this comes back to acting as if, right? What would the higher version of myself do? Well, act like that, right? And I think that's really powerful to me. And then, reiterating what you're talking about, the invisible counsel, I think that that's a powerful exercise. Glenn, I'm glad to hear that you had, taken the time to write down role models, real or fictional or whatever it is. And I would even add to that, like, what are the qualities or what are the attributes that those people bring to the table in terms of how we would utilize those resources in making decisions and being successful. Cool stuff, man. Awesome.
Thank you. Awesome stuff, man. You are the Llama King. Great reminders from Stuart. And of course, everyone get together with Stuart tonight. We're going to talk about e-commerce. Let's go now across the pond to Northern Ireland and Mr. Bill, and then Caroline and Nikki. Hey, Bill.
Hi, John. Hi, everybody. Brilliant subject, John. Really good. Certainly gets the brain thinking. I, like Stuart, would probably say no real role models before.
I'm sorry. Hold on. Stand by. We got Adine and his child there. Okay, go ahead.
No real role models, maybe other than Steve McQueen, I think, from The Great Escape, but that would be about, or Bullet, something like that. But I think, just as you said, John, that you're in the public eye, you have to be the role model all of a sudden. You can't not be the role model, and everybody's watching you. And certainly, I've experienced that quite a lot throughout my working life anyway. I think, I mean, who do I use as a role model to deliver a death message to somebody? You know, walk up to a stranger's door and tell them that their son's not coming home tonight or something similar. So you have to play that as you go along. Certainly you rehearse it as you're driving to the house, because you do not know what you're going to be met with. Some people became violent towards you, which is understandable. And other people opened the door and said, I had one woman that just said, he's dead, isn't he? And that took the wind out of my sails. I mean, I had all this whole thing prepared. But that, you know, that's what people look to you as doing in role model, that how would you do it? And I was exactly going to say what Stuart had said, in that you've got to look at the higher you to see what you've got to step back to see what you actually would say, and not open your mouth before you engage your brain, which is a very common saying that we certainly have here. I'm sure it's as common in the States as well. Yeah. But you really have to take that time and assess things. I think one thing that always stuck with me is, and it is an analogy as such, a senior guy that I used to work with, and he's long dead and gone. But we were at an incident in a scene, and I started to run towards something, and he shouted, and he says, "Don't run." And I look at him, I says, "What's wrong?" He says, "Because you'll panic the public when a policeman's running." Right. And that stuck with me for 20 odd years. So that, you know, that's the thing. Let's walk down, observe, and then we'll deal. And you should use the same in everyday life. Don't go on your first instinct all the time. And that's
right.
it.
Wow. Good stuff. Don't run. Here you are in uniform, right? If you're running, well, that's Armageddon, right? The end.
Yeah.
Great tip. Thank you, Bill. Let's go to Caroline and then Nikki. Hey, Caroline.
Hey, everyone. Yeah, so following Stuart and Bill with great words of wisdom, I just want to add my little, I suppose, what came up for me when I was listening to that about role models, because in a way it's like, it makes me feel a bit uncomfortable, because I grew up completely consciously without role models. And I think in our family, generally looking through the generations, there wasn't like a strong presence of role models certainly that I witnessed. So yeah, I think it's probably an area where I could grow an awful lot by actually putting this whole like a technique into practice, isn't it? To actually stop and think, you know, who would I turn to, real or fictional? And probably it would be people within this group, to be honest, because you're the people that I'm having the most day-to-day contact with, and that I'm getting to know and getting to see how you operate and where your skills and strengths are, which sort of highlights where my weaknesses and room for improvement is. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I'm going to really, I listened to something today which was reminding me about not always just learning and actually implementing and taking immediate action when you learn something. So I'm going to really make myself take some immediate action on this, and just see if I can fast track my growth in certain areas by learning from this thing. What would so-and-so do? So thank you very much, John.
Thank you, my friend. And look, like Glenn and Stuart and others have mentioned, I think you're a role model, and you may or may not recognize that. You know, who's looking at you, Caroline? But you are a breath of fresh air in the lives of a lot of people. At least that's how you occur to me, right? So,
thank you.
Awesome stuff. Speaking of fresh air, we've got Nikki who's about to come out here. Hey, Nikki. Where's Nikki? Or she just vanished. See that? She's so enlightened that she just went into the ethers. Poof, gone. Nikki, are you with us? Nikki?
No, thanks. I'm all right.
Oh,
Is she here? I think I hear her.
I'm here, but I'm all right. I'm not going to talk now. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I saw your hand was up. You sit back, relax, and listen. All right, good stuff. And those are all of our hands. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap up with that. Oh wait, we got two more, and then I do have a hard stop, by the way, at 5 minutes to the hour. So Adrian Jackson, and then we'll go to Neil and Jane. Hey, Adrian Jackson.
Hi, everybody. I agree with Caroline. I grew up with no role model, and you don't know what's going to happen until you go through life. And since I met my wife to be, I've met my ideal role model, and it's my father-in-law. He's gone through life hard, and he's gave me so much information, so much tips. And I like to think of myself as a role model to my kids, so they can look up what I'm doing, look up what I'm doing with my life. And life is hard, and you need to work at it to get where you want to go. But yeah, my role model, I've only got my role model since I've met my fiance. Other than that, I had no role model. And it's just surprising where you meet your role models, and that's where I met my role model, and that's my information.
Mm-hmm. But certainly you could see where other personalities have had an effect on yours. I mean, you didn't just show up on planet Earth and then meet your fiance, right? So something happened to create this version of Adrian, which we all know and love, right? We think you're pretty awesome. So that happened somehow, right? Yeah. Okay. Nice NASA t-shirt, by the way. Good stuff. All right. We got Jane and Neil, and then Therese, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Hey, Jane and Neil, you've got the floor.
Hi, John. Hi, everyone. Yeah, mine's very quick, really. And it sort of follows on from what Bill said. And it's, so the dogs are trying to get in. So before they bark, Lily's here as well. One of the most important things is when you are a role model and don't actually realize it. And this has happened to me in similar situations when you've had to actually tell a family that actually there's nothing more that we can do for your relative, and unfortunately we have to stop. And then you've got students with you that you suddenly realize that the way that you're putting these things across to the family is how they're going to do in the future, in their careers, and the way that they deal with it. And one of the other things that I remember, and I'll make it a little bit more lighthearted, is in my dog agility. I remember watching when I first started a girl with her dog running around, and I thought, she is my role model. One day I will be like her. And I always, when I see her, tell her she was my inspiration and my role model to get this dog to grade 6. And now we're at the same level as she is. So I wanted to finish it lightheartedly because I knew that was quite heavy to start with.
Yeah.
But it's knowing you're a role model, I think, and being very aware of the influence you can have on others.
Wow. Thank you. Jane and Neil, our cute British couple. You guys are amazing. All right. So we got a couple more hands up, and then we're going to be wrapping up. Therese and then Jamie. Hey, Therese.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hi, everyone. Thank you for this one, John. Like so many others. I hadn't really thought about that. I kind of grew up in an interesting time. We were young. I think on television, our role models were, like for a woman, Laverne and Shirley, maybe the mom on Happy Days and the sister. I mean, we just didn't really have, maybe Wonder Woman, this false person who flew around in an invisible plane in this really, ridiculous outfit. I mean, so it's interesting. I think growing up, my mom was the opposite of role model. My dad was the very best that I had, I suppose. And I think for me, I'm going to spend some time focusing in on role models. I'm going to create my list. It's really important to me, and especially in this time when I've made some really big changes. Well, in the last 5 years, some pretty deep personal work. So my father, of course, was growing up, that was the person I tried to emulate when I was feeling anything. And I think his answer to everything was to go outside. So it wasn't great. It was avoidance, really. It was walk away from the situation. At least that's how I saw it in like in their relationship, in communication style. You know, his communication style was, you know, avoid it, walk away from it, but not really teaching us how to effectively solve it, and felt as though, you know, we had remedied the situation. So so it's interesting. And my first action is to still go outside. So if it's just, you know, feeling overwhelmed and frustrated about something, that's a really great tool. I can just go outside and I can be completely enamored. It's Mother Nature, it's God, it's whatever you want to call it. And then I think for me, the other thing that's been a real consistent role model is really my body. Like, you know, exercise has always been a big thing. So if I am having a hard time, like, I'll just go for a run, or I'll do some yoga, or I'll do Pilates, right? So that has been really instrumental. I don't know if you call it a role, the ability to move your body is a role model, the fact that you have that capacity. And then I think also there's some friends that I have that I'm frequently like, you know, yeah, when I get unhappy or get blue, sometimes I get low, like frustrated with myself on how I respond to things, because again, I wasn't really taught proper tools. I mean, I learned things along the way, but I can be reactionary. So I think about a couple different friends of mine who they're always like in the forefront of my mind. It's hard to be that way, but I like this idea of every time you have that action, or that you get into that little stuck place, you try to just create this, the control of your mind, right? The mastermind, and pop that person into your head in that very moment. And the more you do it, the better you'll get. And I think, you know, be able to shift your reactions to something that you emulate to be like. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Therese. Boy, Laverne DeFazio. Yeah. And remember Lenny and Squiggy?
Oh God.
I mean,
are awful.
Lenny and Squiggy.
That's terrible.
All right. Let's go to
I mean, of course,
we lost Therese. All right. I think we're going on to Jamie. Thank you, Therese. That was a nice blast from the past. Where's Jamie? And then we're going to wrap up with Ivier.
I'll be quick. Good morning. Hello, everybody. Afternoon and evening. I have a lot of role models because I have a lot of things going on in my life, as everybody else does. And some role, not one particular role model fits everything for me. So, right. I mean, in the last few months, I've got 35 to 50 role models right here on this screen. I have other role models that I had prior to this. I'm consciously aware that I'm a role model to one person right now, and that's my daughter. I may be to others, I don't know. But I make this, she just got her license. And you know, that's a lot of people on here, I think, have older kids and they've been through this, but you know, you have to, I give her, I say, here's the rope, use it. Or hang yourself with it, you know, take it, let it help you or hang you. And so what I say to her, and I use this for myself, is make your decisions as if I was standing in the room alongside of you. So what I try to do is when I'm doing things is I try to make decisions as if one of my role models who happen to fit that particular mold or that situation for the day, I try to make those decisions as if they're standing next to me. And the stories on here and what people bring here to this group, you know, I mean, that's just added to my portfolio of role models, and I appreciate it. And that's what I try to do is to make the decisions as if somebody who I know knows more than I do is standing next to me. So
yeah,
there you go.
Good stuff. Thank you, Jamie. And of course, you got a lot of background in sports and other things where coaching and role models and mentoring is very alive and well. Thank you, brother. And congratulations to your daughter. And I'm sure she'll do brilliantly. We're going to wrap up with Ivier. Hey, Ivier, your closing thoughts?
Hi, John. Thank you. Hello, everyone. This is probably not topic related, but I'm going to start and try and fit the topic today in. So whoever joined John's daily success calls and then migrated to JLSM, if you didn't think you were a role model, just by being part of this process and on this journey, you are becoming, and you are a role model, whether you like it or not. That's just the impact and the effect that's going to happen by being part of these conversations. It's contagious. You're just gonna. It's a power of the mastermind, right? We take on the habits and the behavior and the traits and the whatever else of everybody else in that mastermind group, right? So that's what's happening here. So by being part of this family, you are being transformed. Whether or not you think it's happening, trust me, it's happening. And you probably suddenly wake up one day, see yourself in the mirror and go, what? How did this happen? It's because of the collective power that we're creating by being together. So having said that, I want to remind everyone, there is a post up on Facebook. Evelyn and I are trying to compile a list of all the children of the JLSM family. So there is no age limit on the children. We need the names of your children and their ages. The plan is to get Christmas presents for every child on this platform this year. The second list we're trying to compile is anybody on this platform who wants to be a participant in buying gifts for the children. So hopefully we can match the number of JLSM family to the number of kids we have. Once I have those two lists compiled, I will be asking each person to pick a number between 1 to 20, for example, if we have 20 children on the list. The only number you won't be able to pick would be the number that corresponds to your child. So you'll have 19 options, the first person. The next person will have 18, and so on and so forth. After I've paired JLSM family member to kid, you will then know what kid you're buying for. And for data protection purposes, you will liaise with the parent of that child to get the postal address on where to send the gift to. So I will not be asking people to share their addresses with me, and I will not be creating a file with everybody's address on. I think I just need to respect people's privacy. So you will only get, once you're matched to a child, you will then talk to the parent of that child to get the address, and so you know where to send the gift to. So just to let it know, we will keep repeating this announcement. We want to try and get the list sorted and the pairing sorted by the end of November. So we all have time to find a gift, buy the gift, and post the gift in time for Christmas. So I hope everybody's on board with this. If you don't want to participate, it's not mandatory. But if you do, please direct message me on Facebook and let's get the ball rolling. Thank you, everyone.
EVA, just one little note here. Grandchildren count.
Yeah, absolutely. Grandchildren count. Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. Thank you, EVA and Evelyn, for facilitating that. This is beautiful. What a great group we have here. And with that, we will go ahead and wrap up. Remember, we've got a couple other things on the calendar for today. For those of you who've got some sidebar conversations you want to have, our hospitality suite is open now. We will see you guys tonight. Make it a great day. Bye for now.